Welcome to the Distinguished Physical Education Podcast. This is Gary Zaharatos. Before we get into today's episode, I'm excited to share an upcoming professional development opportunity with you. The Colorado Health and Physical Education Council is proud to be hosting another Health and Physical Education Summit this summer, June 4th and 5th at Jefferson High School in Edgewater, Colorado, just a couple miles outside of Denver. The summit connects PE leaders, district coordinators, and passionate educators from across Colorado, helping inspire fresh ideas that improve PE for students. Join us and learn practical, proven strategies that will make a real difference in your instruction. I was grateful to be asked to present last year, and I look forward to doing so again this year. One of the main reasons I appreciate the Health and PE Summit is because of the priority it places on incorporating high-quality instructional strategies in its sessions. So don't miss out. Get registered and be part of something that's pushing our profession forward. Did I mention that it's free? This is the perfect opportunity to come visit beautiful Colorado and learn how to incorporate new techniques into your teaching practice. So put June 4th and 5th on the calendar and sign up using the link in the description to this episode. I hope to see you there. What an honor it is to be joined today by two recent Shape America Teacher of the Year Award winners. My guests today are Caitlin Schoville and Austin Olsen. Caitlin graduated from the University of Northern Iowa with a bachelor's in physical education and a minor in health education. She has earned a master's degree in teacher leadership through Lamar University and is finishing up a second master's degree in health and physical education through Northwest Missouri State. Caitlin was named Shape Iowa's Middle School Teacher of the Year in 2022 and Shape America's Teacher of the Year for the Central District in 2024. Caitlin has been teaching 7th and 8th grade health and physical education for 12 years at Pleasant Valley Junior High in eastern Iowa. Austin graduated from San Diego State University and earned his teaching credential and master's at National University. He has been teaching for 23 years and was named Shape America's Teacher of the Year for the Western District and California Middle School Teacher of the Year in 2023. He has taught pre-K through 8th grade and currently teaches at Pacific Trails Middle School and teaches 8th graders. He will celebrate his 20th wedding anniversary this year with his wife Sarah, and they have two girls, ages 14 and 11. In this episode, we discuss the benefits of student choice in PE, motivation strategies for middle school students, how to incorporate standards-based social skills into your units and lessons, and the impact that they have on student engagement and learning, and other topics. And now I bring you Caitlin and Austin. Austin and Caitlin, thanks for joining me today. I know that providing students with choices in your PE class is important to both of you. Can you share why it's important and what some of the benefits are?
I think one of the most important things is students want that autonomy. They want to feel in control, especially when they're getting to that junior high level. You know, they're going through all sorts of changes and they really want to be able to feel success. And when they are trying new things, they want to have that confidence. So they also want a little bit of choice with that. Jordan Manley came to Iowa a few years ago, and he did a presentation and included things about choosing your own challenge and providing students with different levels so they could kind of choose where they're at. And that was kind of a game changer for me. And I've started incorporating more of that into each lesson. So then the students can find success where they're at. And then if they want, they can level up if they want to continue practicing where they're currently at. Because once they see all of that success, then they're more willing to put forth more effort into new ideas.
I just think student choice is so important. We want to get these kids excited to be at school. I have an 8th grade daughter, and I know she doesn't like going to school that much, and she definitely does not like her PE class. So I think anything that we could do in giving students a choice really does help motivate them to want to come to our class. And I think alongside that is, we need to make sure we have clear rubrics when there's a choice so they know what is expected of them. And something that helps me out with the students is I like to show them examples of student work so they kind of have an idea of what is expected from them. So one of the times where I talk about student choice, I do a sleep unit and we do it on 5 Mondays. We're on a block schedule. So every Monday, we meet up for about 35 minutes and we're doing a sleep unit. And at the end of that sleep unit, the student choices, like their task is, the rubric is you have to educate someone. It could either be like a teenager parent, or it could be a teenager. Like, what did you learn from our sleep unit that is relevant to them to kind of help try to promote sleep, you know? And so then they could do like podcasts, TV commercials. I had a student this year do a rap video, which was freaking amazing, and I loved it. And then I had a girl last year, she's really good at drawing, and she drew like a comic strip. And I asked her how long it took her to do it. And she said it took her 3 hours. I'm like, 3 hours? But that is just something that she loves to do. And so it was kind of cool where she was able to show me like her amazing art skills while completing a project in class. So I think anytime you could give like students choice, it's a huge win.
What you're both talking about is differentiation, right? And just different forms of it. So Caitlin mentioned how we could use student choice and differentiating activities in order to get them engaged in class and more excited to be a part of PE. And then you just gave some really great examples of how to differentiate product for students. So they're going to need to show you that they have learned whatever it is that your content was for that unit. In this case, it was the sleep unit. And by providing them with a variety of choices in how they're going to demonstrate that learning, I think you're just going to get more buy-in from students. I want to make sure that we distinguish between providing students with choices and free time. I think that when some teachers hear student choice, they think, well, I'll just go set up like 3 or 4 different stations or courts in the gym, and I'll let kids pick which court and which game they want to be a part of. And that's not exactly what we're talking about here, right?
I'm going to use an example of when we are in our paddle sports. So we do activities such as paddle slam, pickleball, spike ball, obviously just using your hand. When students are able to choose a level, I always start with a basic, like, can you hit the ball in the air to yourself? Okay, can you alternate the front side and the back side of the paddle? So forehand and backhand. And then I move on to a next level. Can you do this while walking around? Can you add in overhand hits? Can you add in switching to your non-dominant hand and adding in challenges that way? So they're still able to achieve those skills and they get to choose that level of challenge. What's really kind of cool is once they see that their teacher is okay with them kind of coming up with their own ways to kind of create challenges. One day I had a kid, when we started doing our dynamic stretches in class, he asked if he could try to keep the ball going while doing dynamic stretches, you know, skipping across the gym, doing different things such as side shuffles. And he wanted to see how long he could keep the ball going, which also challenged other kids in class to want to try something similar.
So what I hear you saying is that you're providing students with choices, but those choices are within the standard or the daily objective that you're teaching them. It's not just free choice time. It's that you as the teacher still have a goal, still have an objective for student learning for the lesson, but you're giving students the opportunity to choose how they want to engage with that.
It's also like kind of groupings. I just got done doing square dance. It's my favorite unit. I love it. And the part of the final product is they get to choose their group size. Like I had some kids like choose just to work with one partner, and I had some groups as many as 10 kids working together. And I think even that little choice right there, like, do you work well with big groups? Do you not want to work well with a big group? Do you want to just work with another person? You like get such a better product from them.
We're going to talk in a little bit about how to motivate middle school students, and we are going to come back to how you motivate your middle school students to square dance. I cannot wait to hear more about that. Caitlin, how does giving students choice impact classroom management? We've talked about how it impacts their progress towards a learning objective. We've talked about how it gives them choices on how they're going to demonstrate their learning. How does it impact their behavior?
When students have the opportunity to choose the activity they're wanting to do, or when they're able to choose the level of challenge they want to attempt, they can see success with that level. And once they see success with that level, then they're willing to maybe try something a little bit more challenging, a little more out of their comfort zone. When students are able to choose, the behaviors go down because they're not being forced into something they don't want to do, something they're not comfortable doing, something they might feel maybe embarrassed if they don't do well. So when they're able to choose what they can do well, it goes much better.
By implementing student choice, you're finding that balance between students feeling challenged, but also experiencing success at the same time. So they're not going to be engaged in an activity that's so easy and boring for them that they're going to push it aside and then go exhibit disruptive behavior. They're also going to find something that's not so challenging for them that they don't have the resources or the scaffolds in order to be successful. And then they just give up and then they go exhibit off-task behavior. So by providing student choice, it sounds like you're saying that they're able to find some success and then continue to engage with the activity. Austin, is there anything that you would want to add on to that?
I have a teacher at my site who's really good at this. And like, so if he's doing a soccer unit, he's got like the Ronaldo challenge and it captures all the elite soccer players, right? He's doing a football unit. He's like, okay, we got the Mahomes challenge today. So again, it's along those lines what Caitlin's talking about, where you're going to be challenged. And that's what middle school students want at the end of the day. They want to be challenged. Like, can you complete this challenge in 5 minutes? Good luck. Go see how far you can make it, And I think things like that, you gamify PE, you make it fun. And the stars get a shine, but even some of the kids who might not be the stars, they still get to see like, hey, what level did you get to? Like, that's awesome. You get to celebrate everyone.
Yeah, we're going to talk about motivation strategies next. And I think that you just pointed out a couple really important ones. So maybe I'll just start by highlighting those and then we'll jump into that topic. You mentioned giving students a time limit to do something. It speaks towards like a sense of urgency. So one of the things that I notice, and I'm really lucky that over the last decade, I've gotten to observe thousands of PE lessons in my job in Denver Public Schools. One thing that I notice between effective PE lessons across the board is that when a teacher has a sense of urgency, students respond to that. So when a teacher meets their class at the door and says, hey, we got so much to do today. I have 3 different activities. You're going to love them. There's going to be some choices for you to make within each one of those. In order for us to get to all 3 of those activities, here's what I need to see in the first 5 minutes of class, right? So you're giving them those time limits. You're communicating that sense of urgency. I think that is huge for motivation. What other ideas, Austin, do you have for how you motivate middle school students?
I do a lot of reflection and a lot of surveys to get data from them to see like what I'm hitting home runs on and what I'm whiffing on. I do many lessons where I put in a lot of hours and the lesson bombs. And it's like, I'm okay with that now. Like, okay, that's gone. But just hearing from them, we used to do a dynamic warm up probably about 4 years ago. And it was like 10 minutes. And I could just tell after the first 2 weeks, the kids were not into it. It was boring. I could read the room. That's one of the best things about being a teacher for a long time is you could read a room. And so I posted out on Twitter, like, hey, we do block schedules. What's a fun way some different people like start classes? And this one person talked about workouts of the day. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then my sidekick, Tyler, he's like, dude, I think theme the WODs, like making the WODs and then theming them. So what we did one summer is we came up with 10 or 20 different WODs and around different parts of our campus. And then we had the kids do them. And I've never seen them work harder before. And the WODs, I might be like Goggins, like Jocko. We did a partner Barbie WOD. Some of them are adventure races. They're just they're different and they're fun, but like, that's how we start class now. And I get kids coming to me like, hey, what WOD are we doing today? And we all have these on posters, like little movie posters, and we show it and, they get excited. And then we do each WOD twice throughout the year. And so they get to see, hey, what was your finishing time around like in September? And like, where are you at today? Are you better? Hopefully, but maybe not. But they get to kind of track themselves. And then in the second semester, they create their own WODs. And then we start doing WODs that they created to end the year. So that's a way to kind of engage them. They get to use their creative minds to create the WODs. And you just see like more engagement. They're excited. It's way better. If you saw a video of my dynamic warm up and then them doing a WOD, it's like so different. And our class is so better. And it's one of the best decisions we've ever made.
Yeah, and it's all because you gave students the opportunity to provide you with some feedback. We have a metric that we use for our teacher evaluations in DPS that actually includes student feedback. There's a list of 30 questions that students get asked, and teachers receive that feedback. Some teachers aren't too crazy about the fact that it's a small percentage of their end of year rating, but I work with a lot of teachers on analyzing that data and looking at the questions that they score really high in. And the questions that, students are responding, hey, I'm not seeing my teacher do these, 3 or 4 things, and trying to incorporate that into their practice. Caitlin, I got a little bit excited and I wanted to talk about motivational strategies for middle school students. And I know that you have some great ideas also. I was going to ask you, though, a little bit more of a philosophical question. What makes motivation so challenging at the middle school level?
From my experience teaching at the middle school level, 7th and 8th grade students, I have combined classes of 7th and 8th grade at the same time. And I believe that middle school and junior high is such a challenging age. Kids are trying to figure out what type of person they want to be. They're transitioning into a new school. They're meeting so many new people. Their level of confidence is wavering big time at this stage. And they have a fear of standing out, but they also want to stand out. So they're trying to find such a fine line in between what is too much level of effort, what's not enough level of effort, what does my teacher want, but I don't want to stand out from my peers too much. And I think that makes it really challenging for students, junior high students especially, to figure out where they want to be and what do they want to be known as.
Let's go back into how to get students to buy into activity. Austin, you mentioned square dancing earlier. I think there are people out there that need to know, in the year 2025, how do you get middle school students to engage in square dancing?
You know, the best part for me is like I show videos of my former students, and a lot of times they're like 8th graders from last year. So I just teach 8th graders. So they see last year's kids performing and they're like, oh, okay. And then I'm really big in making it all student led. So the students have to, like, there's 4 pairs, and pair 1 has to learn level 1 and teach level 1 to their group. And then level 2 has to teach. And then the way I talk about it is you have to teach it to your group has to practice. And then when you feel confident enough, you sit down. And then I do like a graduation level. So that then all the groups stand up and we start playing the song. And then if I see a group who's just crushed, like, oh, you graduated. So they know there's an accountability piece there, because if your group's the last one dancing, they don't want to be the last group dancing, right? So that kind of makes them really like, okay, I need to learn this and I need to make sure I teach it. So there's a little bit of accountability piece there. So that kind of put it all on them. But middle schoolers are laughing and giggling, doing the square dancing, and it's great. And I always tell them one of the big obstacles is like, we have to hold someone's hand. And I tell them the story. The only person I hold hands with is my wife. And I get that lovey-dovey feeling like, hey, if you guys get that feeling, you don't have to tell anybody, right? Or maybe wink at them. I don't know. But you don't have to tell anybody. It's okay. And we're all going to do this. And then I show them the standards too. I tell them, you guys are probably asking, why in the world, Mr. Olsen, are we doing square dance? Really? Guys, guess what the first 2 state standards are in this state of California? Square dance. And I show them that this is my job, right? And I tell them, I think the main part of this standard is at the very end, you have to come up and create a square dance with your group. And you have to come up with 4 new moves. You have to modify 4. You get to choose your own music. And that's a big one too. Like when they get to choose their own music, that's 15 minutes of class. And I make sure it's middle school appropriate, but that's just adding little layers like that, I think makes that unit go so well.
That's amazing. So you really highlight putting students in positions where they can be leaders in the class. There's a certain level of accountability that you expect from your students. Also, the other thing that I noticed from what you were saying was just the approach that you take. I've always been a big fan of being transparent as a teacher. And I feel like the way that you just communicated that to us, how you tell your students what their expectations are, and the funny story about holding hands, it's so relatable and transparent. And I think that students connect to that, especially students in the secondary level, but I think it works well for K through 12. Caitlin, I know you have some other ideas on how you can get middle school students to engage in activities. What are your thoughts?
Like Austin had said, the students love seeing videos of former students and then the potential idea of them getting to be the demo for the next year, which is really fun to do. I have students all the time asking, can you record our group? Can we try this? Can we do this drill? Can we be the next GIF that you create for this particular lesson? And it's really neat just to see them practice really hard and work hard with their group. And I also think it's super important to let the students, you got to recognize again, their level of confidence is really, really low. If you ask a group of students to demonstrate something, they're really afraid they're going to mess up, and they could practice it 10 times in front of just the teacher But as soon as you put them in front of their peers, there's that risk of messing up and they don't want to do that. So whenever I'm doing a demo with my students, I always announce to the demonstration group and to the rest of the class that it's okay. I told them I want them to make a few errors during this demonstration. So I want you guys to be able to give feedback and point out something they did wrong so we can check the rules or understanding for the activity. So that way it's a built-in layer of confidence, because if they do make an error, so if they miss a serve in spike ball, I'll say, okay, so if a serve is missed in the game, then what are we supposed to do? And then the crowd or the students that's observing the demonstration, they have to answer that. Another area, using spike ball again, spike ball is one of my students' favorite PE units. We were really struggling with students to make an effort to use the strategy of hitting the ball super hard because they were so afraid of missing the net all the time because they didn't want to make that error. So I was trying to come up with ways. I was working with my teaching department about how can we get kids to get out of their comfort zone and actually put forth some effort and try these strategies that we're trying to get them to use and implement more of the standard 2 strategies. So I said, okay, in this drill, your only job is to hit the ball as hard as you can off the net. So that was just their direction, was to hit the ball as hard as they could. And I tell them, it's okay if you miss. Like, it's going to happen. You're probably going to miss way more times than you hit it off the net. And as soon as they knew that it was okay to miss and that it was okay to have that expectation, I might never hit it off the net a single time, but I'm at least trying to hit it hard. Eventually, the more they would practice it, the more times they would hit it off the net, and then the more times they used it in gameplay. So that made a huge difference in boosting their confidence in trying that.
You two are middle school whisperers. That's what I'm going to call you. I mean, your intimate level of understanding of what middle school students are going through and your ability to articulate that and provide strategies for your students is just, I hope that 25-year-old me is listening to this episode somewhere, because I really could have used it. Before I move on, Caitlin, can you tell me a little bit more about how you use those videos? Can you just give 1 or 2 examples? You mentioned that you might have a GIF up on the wall of like a prior student demonstrating a skill so that students can see that on repeat. Are there any other ways that you use those videos of former students?
I take videos of students all the time. We have a parent Facebook page that we can post to that our school district allows us to. I share different things on Twitter. And then, like I said, the students love seeing themselves. We finally got projectors put in our gym, so we use projectors all the time. For example, when we talked about the levels of challenges, the different GIFs, I have a GIF for each level demonstrating what the challenge looks like. So if it's just holding the paddle, hitting the ball in the air to yourself, whether it's alternating forehand and backhand, hitting overhead or underhand, walking around while doing it, those are each different GIFs that I'll create. And then every year I update them so they can see a new group of students doing it or a relevant group of students doing it.
It's so powerful for students to be able to see previous students that you've had engaging in these skills, experiencing success, being challenged all at the same time. So a lot of the things that you both have talked about are proactive. And I believe that in order to get students to engage, you have to be proactive. What happens when you do have a handful, 1 or 2, hopefully only, students who are reluctant to participate? Do you have any strategies for how you would get reluctant students to engage in an activity if some of your proactive strategies are not working?
Well, for me, I mean, obviously I'm based in relationships. So it's day 1. It's starting to try to learn as much as I can about them. And I have a cheat sheet with me in my clipboard that I always have their answers to like the 10 hot seat questions that I do at the beginning of the year. So I really try to dive into those relationships. Now, sometimes, the kids will put up that wall around them, but I just crush them with kindness, greet them with a smile every single day. And I will go to parents. I like to make positive emails, and I will send some emails or phone calls home just saying, the effort level's dipping a little bit. I don't know what's going on, but if you could have a talk with them. And sometimes that phone call changes a lot. Sometimes it doesn't. Then you kind of know it's all on you. But the main thing is just try to crush them with kindness. And then sometimes I'll even ask them questions. How can I motivate you? What are some different techniques that you think might work? And so I try to get feedback from them again, just to figure out where they're at and why aren't you moving as much as I would like you to? And sometimes you get good answers, but at the end of the day, I just try to crush them with kindness, greet them with a smile every day. And then when they do something great, like catch it and then call home and say, Oh, wow. It's so awesome to see, and that goes a long way. I feel like you could tell who those kids are early in the year. So when you catch one of them doing something really awesome, praise what you want repeated and call home and celebrate them. And a lot of times, if you do that, you can catch them early, then you got them.
Yeah, that positive reinforcement is super important, especially if you're elevating that to their parents, because that's helping you develop relationships with the families that then you can lean on. You can leverage those when you need them in the future. The other thing you mentioned kind of just ties us back to what we were talking about earlier with differentiation. With the teachers that I work with, I call it a customer service mindset. It's essentially like, what would it take for me in order to get you involved in our activity? You need to restate your objective for the students, right? So, hey, look, what I want us to be making progress towards today, or what I want you to learn today based on this standard is blank. What do I need to do in order to help you be successful in that activity? Caitlin, what would you like to share?
I was just going to kind of tie on with what Austin said. When students are a little bit reluctant or refusing to participate, sometimes I believe they don't know the why behind what we're doing. So making sure that we communicate with them. Sometimes it's even beyond the standards. Like, yes, this is what we're expected to teach, but this is also how we're going to tie it to your real life. This is how we're going to make this connection. This is why we're working on some flexibility related exercises. We talk about like preventing injuries. We talk a lot about the why, and we bring that together as a closing a lot in our department. My department really values that. So in order to get to leave, your group or your partner, you and your team might have to come up with 3 reasons why we did this particular activity in the day. And once the students realize that there is a purpose behind everything that we're doing, then they're able to kind of buy in a little bit more. Another thing I think is super important, especially at the junior high level, and it can be very, very challenging sometimes, but you have to bring the energy you want your students to see as well. When you're excited about something and you hype up your activities, you really get a lot more buy-in. I always laugh at the beginning of the year. I work with 6 other PE teachers in my building, and we rotate students every 2 weeks. Students get a new choice of activities that they do, new units that they sign up for. So that kind of ties the choice back in, which also helps eliminate some of the refusal or the reluctancy, because they get to choose if they're in the competitive unit or more of an individualized unit or more of a team building unit. It's just so nice for them to get to see that. And every time I have a new group of students, I'm like, you guys, this is my favorite unit. I love teaching this unit. And then, by units 3, 4, 5, they're like, Ms. Schoville, you always tell us you love this unit. Like, you always say this is your favorite unit. And I'm like, you're right. I love them all. And so they start to catch on a little bit. But then at that point, they know that I'm just constantly going to bring that energy. And that has really helped a lot as well.
I love the way that you just described that. You really do have to not even match energy. You have to have more energy than your middle school students. And again, you just did it, Caitlin. You brought me right back to teaching middle school. I remember the 2 questions that students ask most often are, what are we doing today? And then if you decide that you want to answer that question, the next question is, why are we doing that? So telling students the why behind the activity is absolutely going to make an impact on their level of engagement. Austin, anything that you want to add to our conversation here on motivating middle school students before we move into talking about standards-based social skills?
Just one thing, and what's your why? I love it, Caitlin. One of the activities that I do at the beginning of the year before we do our first WOD is I saw an article a while back on the top 10 benefits for teenagers for moving their bodies. There's 10 of them, and they have to rank them 1 through 10 individually. Then I do a team shake, and then they go with a group, and then I got them all cut out. Then they have to make a top 10 list as a group. What do you guys think as a group is most important from 1 to 10? And then obviously there's going to be tough decisions that they have to make. So I'm going to have one person in that group who's going to stay there and kind of defend or kind of explain what order they chose, while the other members will go around the room. It's like the gallery walk, and they kind of go around and look at everyone else's to kind of see what everyone ranked. Then they come back and they kind of talk about what they saw. And then I intentionally make sure they do their own before they do that. For my daughter, who's in 8th grade, she ranked anxiety as number 1. That's the number 1 benefit for movement for her. But when they get in a group setting, that might slip down to number 6, 7, and some groups ranked it as 10, some ranked it as 1. So it's just interesting for them to see how everyone else ranks it. But then I try to tap into that when we're doing WADs, like, hey, what's your why? Remember your why. Why are you moving today? What's that benefit you're seeking? So I like to do it that way as opposed to earn your 1 point today, get in that moderate to vigorous zone. I want it to be more like coming from inside with them. It's hard to do, but the more you could tap inside internally, the better results you get.
That's such a great example of how to incorporate that why into your daily lessons. The other thing that you made me think of was a rigorous PE lesson includes not just moderate to vigorous physical activity, it includes a cognitive level of rigor as well. And I think that when students know that they're going to be challenged, not just physically, but intellectually as well, that's also going to have an impact on their level of engagement in the class, the level of comfort that they have as well. They know that they're going to be challenged both mentally and physically.
Another thing I'd like to add too is I use clicker magnets, and so they can't see their people's responses. So every now and then I'll be like, okay, what was your effort on the WAD today? Where were you? And I have a 4-point rubric. And so then they show me they put out their magnet and then I scan it real quick. And it's another way for them to be accountable. I want to see if what I think you got matches what you got, and I think it's another way. So they're thinking while they're working out, and then they have to reflect, like, did I? I don't know. And some of the kids are super hard on themselves. I'm like, come on, you crushed that. And they'll rank themselves a little bit lower. But that's another piece to it, is letting them kind of reflect on how they did, but letting them know that you're going to do that before the activity.
It's such great ideas. I appreciate you sharing them. I want to move into our last topic, which is something that I'm super passionate about, and it's our standard on social skills. So I was wondering how you intentionally incorporate standards-based social skills into your PE lessons. What do they sound like when you communicate an objective based on a standards-based social skill as opposed to a physical skill or a fitness concept? And can you give us an example of what a lesson might look like that's focused on a social skill?
So one of the activities I like to do in one of my lessons, it's really around team building, where I feel social skills really can come out, and there's a lot of different leadership skills that can be seen. And so I like to pose a challenge in a way and let students figure it out. And I think sometimes it's super hard for teachers to hold back and not tell them how to do something when we're watching them do it incorrectly 10, 15, 20 times with a partner. And once they finally get it though, and you see that they've tried and failed, by the 13th time, and then the 14th time they get it, it's such an awesome moment to see the light bulb come on for them, see them find that success. We do an activity where I use Beanie Babies a lot in junior high, and some people laugh at that, but they work great. If you're using a ball, the ball is going to roll around when it hits the ground. The Beanie Baby doesn't. And we had them donated, so it was really nice too. I had the students practice using a juggling scarf, and they pass a Beanie Baby to another group who has to try to catch it using their juggling scarf. And so the whole goal around that is problem solving. And again, it would be super easy to say, this is how you do it, or to show one of the videos from students in the past, like, this is how you do it. But I want them to be able to figure that out. And just watching them struggle to an extent, you do want to give some feedback without fully answering the question at times, because you also don't want that to turn into a behavior management issue. If they're not seeing success and they're nowhere near seeing success, you will want to give them some types of feedback. I also have the students give each other verbal affirmations. And it sounds really ridiculous, but I think one of the easiest ways to start incorporating some social skills is to tell the students what to tell each other. It's like a very basic level, and it seems silly, but after we do some muscular endurance exercises, sometimes, or a lot of times I should say, the students just know it now and they just do it by this point in the year. But I'll say, hey, tell your group, you're so strong. And they have to match my inflection. And it's so funny to hear them. And you just see everybody smiling. Everyone's high-fiving each other. Like Austin said with square dancing, we just finished our rhythms and dance unit, and we did some cardio drumming. So you can give those verbal affirmations, even if they're just something silly, working on social skills and complimenting each other. So after we did one of the cardio drumming songs and performances, I said, hey, turn to somebody next to you and tell them, whoa, you should join a band. And just little things like that, because it gets the junior high kids laughing. It makes it more fun. And I feel like that's a very basic level of how to start incorporating some social skills into your PE class.
I love those examples. A teacher that I worked with when I was at middle school taught me that middle school students respond well to things that elementary school PE teachers do. I was always a little reluctant to do that, but he came in teaching from an elementary school in the same district and, would play a lot of the same warm-up games and would sometimes sound exactly the way that you did with that like almost elementary school inflection in your voice. And it doesn't matter. Middle school students respond well to it.
I was going to add into that at several conferences I've been to, and I talked to a lot of middle school PE teachers who are afraid to go back and do some of the elementary activities and elementary games. But really, your junior high and middle school students, they're just bigger elementary kids. And we offer elementary games as a unit the students can sign up for. And that is almost one of our first filled units every single time we do unit signups. We get the scooters out, we get the parachutes out, we play all sorts of activities that they would do in elementary school, and they love it.
I had never thought about middle school teachers doing a unit on elementary games. That is absolutely brilliant. What a great opportunity that would be too, to work in some of these social skills that we're talking about. You gave some really great examples about lessons that would be dedicated to standards-based social skills. Austin, do you do like group cooperative games with your standards-based social skills, or do you weave it into other units that you're doing? Like, do you find a place in a sport unit or in a fitness unit to bring in some social skill standards?
So the very first unit I do is the adventure unit, adventure learning, and it's through the open. And I obviously go present on that, and I love it. Kids are blindfolded or just different types of challenges. And I try to tell them right away is like, I'm watching to see how you are interacting with your peers. Are you lifting them up if they make a mistake? And I am very clear on the rubric. The rubric is posted. And I also, this is the first year I ever had my class take a name test. So I have a class up to 47 students, and about the third month, I have a test where they have to try to see how many people's names they know in the classroom, and then they'll retake it again, and they can take it unlimited amount of times until they show me that they know everybody's name. And that's just trying to build that positive classroom learning environment. So the adventure ed unit is something I absolutely love. But I also, in that unit, I kind of introduced the core 5, which is like being open-minded, being responsible, respectful, being committed to class, committed to your groups that you're assigned to, and being safe. And after every single group unit, I do peer evaluation. So they have to score every single member in their group on those 5. And it's really cool because I have it in a Google form. And when they come back to me, I have it populated. It'll populate red for me if students are scoring low. So then I'll just kind of look for the, where a student's getting scored a little bit lower. And then that lends itself to a conversation. And also in those Google forms, the students give feedback like, what can this person improve upon? Then they also ask, what is this person doing really well? So I could kind of start with a positive, but then say, hey, these are some things that your teammates noticed. Maybe you're not passing the ball to everyone. Maybe sometimes when you're playing teams, you get distracted by your friends, or you're just not being responsible, respectful, whatever it may be, maybe not being safe or committed, not participating in the drill with your team as you should be. So then that's all data for me to collect, and it lends to some great conversations to students. Hey, this is what happened. We have a new unit coming. I really want to see your teammates score you a little bit higher in the respect category because 2 of your teammates, last one scored you a little bit lower. And it's just data for them. And then I also tell them, like, if I don't see an improvement, we might have to loop in your parents because I really do want you to be a better version of yourself. And I want you to improve. And right now, here's a little gap where I think you can get better. It's an accountability piece as well. When I'm on the field doing ultimate frisbee, I'm like 60 yards away from a field, but I know that they are all watching their teammates and they know each teammate is going to give them a score. So really it does help with classroom management as well. But that's just the way I'm able to kind of look at their social skills throughout the year and hopefully see them improve for those who are struggling a little bit.
That's such a brilliant way to hold students accountable to incorporating these standards-based social skills into each unit that you teach. I see it happen both ways with the teachers that I support, basically just what each of you just described. Sometimes they'll do a unit all by itself that's going to focus on these social skills. Usually it's at the beginning of the year. Sometimes it's right after winter break or right after spring break, or towards the end of the year. There's like choice times in the year where you can feel that your students need to be refreshed on some of these skills. The other places and units that I see it is towards the end of like a more traditional sports unit, even though they're playing a lot of modified games. They'll teach fitness concepts and physical skills throughout the first 3 or 4 days of the unit. And then when it comes time to play in modified games and give students some choice in how they want to demonstrate their learning, the teachers will have a daily objective on a standards-based social skill. We don't need to worry about how to dribble a soccer ball on Friday. You've already learned that skill. Obviously, I'll give you feedback on it if I see you, not keeping control of the ball or something. But our main objective for the end of the unit on Friday is that we're going to be working on a specific component of a standards-based social skill, which leads me to the other thing I wanted to bring up to you to get your opinions on. Sometimes I'll see teachers who will just say like, today we're working on teamwork, or today we're working on sportsmanship. And in our Colorado standards, we have some incredible language. I pulled a couple from our middle school standards that I wanted to share with both of you, just to show the intentionality and the depth behind some of the language that comes from it, so that we could move away from just saying we're teaching teamwork or we're teaching sportsmanship today. I'm just going to read a couple of them. So one of them, these are all in middle school. I think I pulled them from 7th and 8th grade, but as you know, the new national standards are by grade band. So that's the way I look at our state standards as well. I'm so proud of our social skills standard in Colorado. So I'm just going to take a moment to brag about it. We have grade level outcomes that say things like students will acknowledge the performance of others regardless of the outcome. They will participate with others in all types of physical activity, regardless of their race or ethnicity, gender, or culture. Students will make suggestions to the teacher on how to modify a game to allow all members with varying skill abilities to participate. That connects back to what we talked about earlier with student choice and differentiation. The other one that I pulled was students will exhibit responsible social behavior by cooperating with classmates and demonstrating inclusive behaviors. I mean, if you're teaching your students what inclusive behaviors look like during whatever modified game you're playing today, whether it's modified versions of soccer or modified versions of net and wall activities, and students are able to leave your class and communicate to their classroom teacher or principal or their parent that they didn't just learn how to play spike ball today or just hit a ball over a net or just play a soccer game. They learned inclusive behaviors, what they look and sound like, and someplace outside of PE that they can go demonstrate those inclusive behaviors. There's really nothing else, in my opinion, that legitimizes and advertises a PE program more than our standards-based social skills.
That last one really resonated with me. And we just had a really cool example when you said exhibits responsible social behavior by cooperating with classmates and demonstrating inclusive behaviors. In middle school, I've started doing this a lot more, and I highly encourage, if you teach middle school or high school, especially, in order to boost some of that confidence, is having some flexibility in your sizes of groups. So instead of saying, hey, get into a group of 4, that's going to cause people to be left out. If there's a group of 5 friends, one's left out. If there's only a group of 3, it's just really challenging. So if you can modify your groupings and let them choose, I like to say like, hey, get into a group of 3, 4, or 5. And then students have that choice. And it also helps them be inclusive, because if there's a group of friends that are, a group of 3 and a group of 2, I said you could have 5. So they're like, hey, come join us. We'll make a full group. We've been doing that all year. I do that every year. And now by this point, we're in the 3rd quarter of our school year. I had a group of students come up to me when we were getting into groups the other day. I said, okay, groups of 4, 5, or 6. And 2 boys came up to me and they were like, hey, can we have 7 in our group? We saw so-and-so didn't have a group to be in, and we want to bring him into our group. And that was everything that I wanted out of that, because now I'm thinking maybe in the cafeteria, they'll do the same thing at their lunch table if someone's looking for a spot to sit, or somebody on the bus, or in a pickup game at a park somewhere. And I think just reminding those students that it's okay to include other people and invite them into that, and having those types of standards and working on those skills, demonstrating those skills and letting them practice is so important.
such great connections to real world applications. These are skills that students desperately need. Do they need to learn how to dribble a basketball? All right, yeah, probably. But what do our students need more? And what are we in a position to teach them? Because as far as I know, we're one of the only content areas that has social skills as part of their standard. So I just think that that's such a powerful opportunity for PE teachers to teach these types of skills. Austin, what do you think?
Well, I just think too, like the example you just shared, Caitlin, like talking to those boys maybe at a different time, just like, how did that make you guys feel, including someone? It probably made you feel really good, and you have no idea how it made the other person feel, inviting them into your group. So really trying to tap into how they feel during those circumstances. And there's also times where I think a lot of PE teachers don't realize this, but like when you do say get in groups of 2, like that is the worst part of the day for some kids, 1000%. They might not have a friend in that class, or they're paired up with the same person over and over and over again. So I think we really got to be really strategic with how we do pair students up and really celebrate those students who do invite others in, just like you talked about, Caitlin, because when you get those moments throughout the day, that's why we're here. We are trying to make people better versions of themselves. And I love Standard 3. And I think it's the second to last chapter in your book, Gary. And that chapter right here, like that's the most important thing to me, is trying to make these people care about their wellness, but just be good people. Can we get better? We could all get better. And at the end of the day, that's the standard that I care about the most.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just dig a little bit deeper into it, actually, because the level of intentionality that comes with some of these lessons that are on social skills. I mean, I mentioned it earlier that we don't just want to say, today we're learning teamwork. Okay, let's go play our 3 different modified activities today. If, for example, we're looking at the last one that I talked about, students will exhibit responsible social behavior. We want to start off that lesson by having students talk about what responsible social behavior looks like. So in this particular lesson, we might want students to describe responsible social behavior. We obviously want to see them demonstrate it in whatever the activities are for that day, but we want to make sure that we're providing students those opportunities to articulate that learning as well, so that they can go share what they learned in PE class outside of the gym. So the questioning is really important. Let's give students those opportunities to talk to a partner or a small group about what responsible social behavior looks like. Maybe we want to give them an opportunity to set a goal regarding how they're going to demonstrate responsible social behavior in class today. Austin, you're making me think now of how students could be held accountable for doing that. So maybe you want to find a buddy in class, and you're going to tell them your goal, and then they're going to hold you accountable to that goal of exhibiting responsible social behavior. You're obviously walking around, you're getting your steps in outside when you're playing Ultimate Frisbee, going around asking students what their goal was and how they're exhibiting responsible social behaviors in Ultimate Frisbee today. And then maybe you finish off that class by asking them, where is a place outside of PE? Is it in the cafeteria? Is it at the park on the weekends? Is it on your football team? Where are you going to exhibit responsible social behavior outside of PE class? And what is that going to look like? Let's finish up by just offering some advice to some secondary teachers out there. Austin, what do you think? What's a piece of advice that you would give a secondary PE teacher?
The number one thing I would say is the first 2 weeks are critical. You got to make sure you know your kids' names. The best strategy I ever learned is that the only time there's a long line in my class is the first day of school, and I have my phone. The kids come up and they say something. They say their first name, something they're passionate about, and their first name again. And it ends up being like a video that's 2.5 minutes long, and I have 5 of them because I have 5 periods. And then I just study those like heck for the first 2 weeks. And then when you call somebody by their name for the first time, you could see their eyes light up. And I was at a conference a while back where someone said, there's a lot of middle school students who never hear their name once throughout the day. Then I was like, well, gosh, I wanted to be that teacher who says their name. So I make it a point to say every student's name at least once in the class. And it's usually during the workout, and it's usually like a high five and you're crushing it. Good job. So just trying to make sure you build those relationships. Last year at SHAPE, the SHAPE conference, Maddie Bristol, he won a National Middle School Teacher of the Year. And he said, connection is the content. And I'm a big believer in that. Really connect with your kids, because when you invest in them, they will invest back in what you're selling. At the end of the day, we're salespeople. We are trying to sell wellness. And if they see us investing in them, I think they're going to give us a chance, and hopefully we could crush it when we get that chance.
Well said. Caitlin, what advice do you have for secondary PE teachers?
Some of the things that we talked about earlier, bringing that energy and just having fun. Again, the junior high students, they are just big elementary kids who still enjoy having fun and just making things more fun. In general, giving them separate challenges, like getting to choose some of their challenges. And as Austin said, the relationships are everything in junior high. When you can build that relationship with a student, it ties back to one of the Colorado standards you listed earlier about asking students how they would modify a game. I just did that recently. And I told the students, I said, hey, I'm trying something totally new. I've never done this. And I'm kind of trusting you guys to help me through this. If something doesn't make sense, let me know. If you have a better idea of a different rule we could add in, great. Like, be thinking of this while we try playing this activity. And so we did the activity. I paused it after a couple minutes and asked for feedback and said, okay, how do you feel like it's going? Okay, how could we make this more movement based? And then they gave some feedback and we tried that. And then we paused a few minutes later and I said, okay, how can we make this more inclusive? How could we incorporate more passing into this activity? And the students helped kind of build this new activity. So when they know that you trust them with their ideas and you're willing to try their ideas as well, they're going to have more buy-in. Things are not always going to go the way you planned. And so you just reflect, you ask your students for feedback, you adjust from class to class. And I think it's going to be a lot better for you if you just incorporate your students into some of the planning and the ideas and listen to their feedback. Another thing I think is super important, and I heard this quote, this was many years ago. I was a very new teacher and I was at a state conference and I was listening to one of the Teacher of the Year's speeches after they were announced as the Teacher of the Year. And the teacher said, I want to teach 35 years. I don't want to teach 1 year 35 times. And I think that makes such a difference in how are you constantly going to be trying to get better? How are you going to keep making your classroom the best it can possibly be? How are you going to make your students' experience the best it can be in physical education?
There are so many threads that I want to pull on there, but since you've both been so generous with your time, I'm just going to start planning another conversation for us somewhere down the road. I've always said that when I go back to teaching in the gym, that it'll be elementary, 100%. And I've got my reasons for why I'm just drawn more towards teaching elementary PE. I think after a conversation with you two, I think it's about 95% chance now that's elementary. I think you've got me thinking that perhaps one day I would return to teaching middle school. I really appreciate both of you and all of the experience and the expertise that you've shared. If there are any awards out there that you haven't won yet, I think you should be front runners for those. And your students and your schools and your communities are so lucky to have you. So thank you both.
Thank you very much, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary. This was super fun.